Welcome to the Dudeology Show, where real dudes discuss cool stories, awesome stuff, and killer gear. We're your hosts, the professors of Dudeology. Make sure to check us out, dudeologyshow.com, at Dudeology Show on your socials, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. This episode of the Dudeology Show is brought to you by the Really Good Beer Stop, your spot for really good beer. Now with two locations, Jacksonville Beach and the Nocatee Town Center. Check them out at reallygoodbeerstop.com. Gentlemen, it's good to see you guys this evening. We're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to do a OG Roundtable. And what that is that's some of our original members that have been on past episodes. We're going to just sit around and talk about current events and talk about things that are going on. So moving left to right on your podcast dial is from the episode Pro Bono, Pro Beer, is Legal Bill. Legal Bill, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's great to be back.
Challenge for this episode, when we do pull in your professional legal opinion, is to not answer with "it depends." Is that cool?
It depends.
Negative.
No, it's cool.
Negative
It's
one.
cool.
Negative one.
Every lawyer since law school.
And then recovering so nicely from his surgery, right? It's the same old Chris. Ain't nothing changed but his limp. Ain't gonna stop till he has his name on a blimp. Gambino, and he is producer extraordinaire. We were at a meeting yesterday, and he leveraged some contacts and brought some guys in to really up the technology game here. And dude, I appreciate everything you do. So before we get any further, I would like to say cheers to you, man, to your recovery.
Appreciate
and thank
it.
you for making this show happen, brother.
I'm a little lighter today without that lower back L4, L5 disc. So
A little chunk of it taken out. And John Richardson from Growth Mindset. We like to refer to it as the 4-minute mindset, but that really is misleading because you are a sub 4 minute,
right?
Sub 4 minute mile, and owner of John Richardson Performance Training.
Yeah, that's close enough. That's
Sure.
good.
John Richardson Training, Performance,
John
Performance Coaching. I'm
yeah.
gonna get it.
Yeah, that's all.
When you sponsor, though, we'll make sure that we say your name the right
I
way.
appreciate that.
Yeah, make sure.
I'll have my agent call you.
Sure. And Pat Eliason, last time you were on the show, you were playing a little bit of Alex Trebek, and Pat comes with a career Department of Defense retiree, and now is moving into the private sector. So Pat, welcome back, man.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, if you would have told me, I was thinking back, because 2020 has been like such a weird year, and I was thinking back that on, I think it was like January 3rd, when we just put a freaking Predator rocket up Soleimani's ass, dude, and then they threw like I think they hit us like one of our little bases that we had in Iraq. I remember looking at my wife saying, "Man, this is like the scariest thing. This is absolutely like," I was scared. I'm like, war with Iran, like this is like a really scary thing. And that guy was an ass, by the way, like that Soleimani guy, funding terrorists and stuff. But I was thinking, man, this is going to be like not the way I wanted 2020 to start. In retrospect, I was like,
I mean, every day you get a good laugh, and you're like, it can't get worse than today, right? And then the next day,
right,
something new, right? Murder hornets, coronavirus.
I would have made it taken murder. I don't want war. I'm not like condoning war or anything, but I was like, how do you think? Okay, Pat, in your experience, we'll kind of shift to you. How would if that would have escalated with Iran? Like, how do you think that would have played out?
Yeah, I think the biggest worry with Iran, when you back your opponent in the corner, they have no other way to come out. They're going to come out swinging, and we've done that with Iran pretty close right now with all the economic sanctions and everything else. I will tell you, we have so much more firepower than Iran as a country that if we bring what we have to bear against them, it's not going to be a fair fight. But that is such a unique problem set over there. Sunni, Shia, terrorists, state-funded, not state-funded. What the government did, taking out Soleimani, they really put their foot down, something that years ago we thought was crazy, taking them out like we did. We took them out and honestly ended a problem. That missile strike, they had to do something, coming back a couple days later.
Sure.
And I think we may or may not have gotten phone calls that was coming, because if you notice, not a lot of people were really injured in that. But I think they showed some response. But yeah, definitely an interesting way to start off a year. I will tell you, at the time, I was captain of a ship, and I was ready to load me up with tomahawks and send me over. I was ready to go.
Right. But you're like close to retiring, so you're like, can I be back in a certain amount of time? Like,
yeah,
can I go over if I kick a ass and come back?
I wouldn't want to shoot a batch of tomahawks. You're out. You're ready to come back. But no, but it was definitely an interesting way to start. But I will tell you, the Iranian threat, they did a nice job of neutralizing that by taking that one bad man out, and can't agree more with how they did it.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. And again, not to like get on like, oh, like, I think we should go to war. I don't think war's good for anybody, right? At all. Kind of as a last resort. But it's some of this, like, there's so much divisiveness in the country. And you think back on September 12th, how united were we? Or probably if you talk to like our grandparents, how united were we like the day after Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
Right. And now we can do things like take people out with like tomahawk. So why do you think, do you guys remember, how upset do you think if you were like a terrorist that like we're always like droning people? And it's not even like a fair fight.
One day you're here, one day you're a cloud of dust.
Well, you're like, all right, we're gonna get you. They're like, Predator Strike. What was that game where like Bo Jackson was like the best, the video game where you hand him the ball and Tecmo Bowl. So it's like your buddy always wants to come over, and he's always the Raiders with Bo Jackson, and you're like, well, I'll try to be the Buccaneers, and I'll try to beat you.
Yeah.
That's like probably like a terrorist feels
I
like.
think the biggest
Predator,
problem with that from a psychological country sport standpoint is we kind of get numb to what we're doing. And we kind of expect results as quickly as we do with very minimal risk. And I think that's one thing. If we truly got into something, there'd be some risk there, and it wouldn't be a 72-hour affair. It would take a while. And we're finding that right now with the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. But no, the Predator, that's a heck of a capability we get to bring to bear, both the Predator, the Tomahawk, all the strike warfare capabilities we have. But we find that to win things long term, it probably needs people, and that's not a very comfortable feeling for anyone.
So, and this you're a war college guy, right? You went to the war college, or
I have some war college certifications. Yes.
Okay, you do. Isn't there just like this whole concept where like this kind of regime change or whatever, like we tried in Iraq, it doesn't work because there's like no ownership middle class. There's no dudes like us that are like, oh, I own that building, so don't blow it up.
So when you look at terrorism as a thing, terrorism is creating terror. It's not body counts, it's creating terror. And what we found in Iraq and Syria, whether it was Al-Qaeda or ISIS, if there's a vacuum of leadership, and there's a vacuum of alternatives for military-age men, for the most part, to have something to do, what do they fall into? We see it in this country. I'll be honest. I mean, to connect to the social unrest that's going on here now, if there's a vacuum of opportunity or perceived opportunity, you see people turn to bad things, whether it be the drug trade, whether it be different things. And I think it's the same thing in the Middle East, where the perceived middle class there, even the lower class, perceive they have no opportunity, and that's the only way out is to get in there. And that's where I think, and I did a tour of Special Operations Command, and they definitely think this as well. We need to create a society over there and help create a society, but we can't do it. Yeah. They have to do it, where there's opportunity and there's a stable government that provides that opportunity. And I'll be honest, I mean, not to get ahead of where we're going to go today, but that's the biggest worry I have about the United States right now, is the perception is there that there's not those opportunities. And I truly think there are. I truly think it's the greatest country in the world. I've been to a bunch of them. There's nothing better than this one. Yeah. And that's the biggest worry I have, is that what we're perceiving, what the media is pushing, there's no other opportunity and there's no other alternative. There absolutely is. Sure. I mean, how many people have worked hard, done their job? But that's the biggest worry over there in the Middle East. And we've seen it as we thought we defeated Al-Qaeda in 2004, 2005, and they came back. Yeah, the Arab Spring in 2007, 2008, they came back. And then we thought we tamped down again with the surge. We kind of backed out of there. And then this ISIS group, which is really Al-Qaeda with a different name and a little bit different mission statement, if we're using the corporate terminology. Sure. With the caliphate. But it's all based on radical, crazy terrorists leveraging a population that feels they're disenfranchised. That's all it is. And that's all. And that's why terrorism has kind of grown in that area of the world. And that's where you take a domestic look. I think we've got to be very careful with where we are as a society right now in the United States.
Sure. Kind of like gangs in the United States. I mean, it's a perception of a lack of opportunity. What do kids do at a young age, right? In Chicago, where I'm from, kids would join gangs. They'd be brought into gangs 11, 12 years old. And they're told this is the pathway to make money, and this is your only shot. So it's similar to what you're saying, I think, and I agree.
Have you ever known anyone that's like, because so sometimes like when you catch a bad guy, catch a terrorist, and you bring them back to the States, they all of a sudden they're like on trial, and they have like, we provide them with a lawyer. And have you known anybody, or like, how would you feel as a lawyer if you're like, hey, oh, you're the defense counsel, guess who you drew? You drew Al's an asshole here, and he just blew up a school bus full of kids in wherever. And how would you feel if you're like,
in fairness, I've never been a criminal defense attorney for a reason. By choice. So I would not and have not done that. But, I do believe under the Constitution of the United States, everybody has a right to a defense, and the government's not always right in bringing charges. Sometimes, and many times, the person is guilty and did do the crime, and but there's that small percentage, who didn't.
So I guess my question is, what is the law that says if someone's in like somebody tries to blow up because it's on American soil, they committed the crime on American soil, so they get tried as an American citizen? Is that
Well, if they're an American citizen.
okay? But what if they're just a
if
war
they're
criminal?
not, then it depends kind of what.
It's -1.
I said it depends. We need to drink. We need to drink.
It depends.
Oh man! Hey, you know what else is scary? Right after this, I think the next big thing we got was you think I'm gonna say COVID, but it was actually Tiger King. I think Tiger King was on Netflix before March 13th, which was like our COVID D-Day, I think, which the day the world stopped.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch that?
I did.
The whole thing?
The entire series.
I wish I hadn't, but
That's
I
right.
did. But I kind of want to hear what Bill's saying, though. I didn't mean to.
Sure. No, go ahead.
Sure,
Sorry.
sure.
We'll pause on
So-
Tiger
so,
King. Put a pin in that.
there's
Yes.
a
Put a pin.
crime-
Another
We
corporate
gotta
crime.
talk Tiger
It's
King.
tough because
But-
Bill is the biggest Joe Exotic fan that I know.
Yeah. I never watched that show. For the record, I've never watched that show.
You're also not on the only dude in the world that's not on social media. either.
I am.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay.
Continue, sir. Counselor.
So, if there's a crime in the United States is associated with terrorism, most likely that person's going to be tried in federal court. They're going to be tried for capital murder and terrorism. Now, during the Bush years, notably soon after September 11th, a lot of those folks were taken and tried in military court for confidentiality, for security issues, and quite frankly, the laws are more favorable to the government and military court than the civil court or criminal court in a federal court. So it kind of depends. I said it again, we'll drink.
It's gonna be
We're
tough.
gonna have to
It's
take
gonna
a
be tough
break.
to refill here
Why did they
shortly.
give you just? Is that the sample size?
I
Pat,
think
is that
so.
the sample
It looks
size?
like your analysis cup. I'm not
Most
sure.
of those alleged crimes are tried in federal court, in the federal court system, whether the person is an American citizen or not. Now, a person who's not an American citizen isn't afforded the same constitutional rights, right? That's why sometimes they want to move them to a military court,
Right.
because they don't have Fifth Amendment rights necessarily. They don't have Sixth Amendment rights, Seventh Amendment rights. So they move them out because, quite frankly, the government doesn't have to, afford.
Well, you hear a lot about these guys who are illegally here in America. They'll commit a crime and they'll get deported back to Mexico, but then they come back, commit another crime. So what's happening in those cases? Are they just being deported and not tried here, depending on what the crime was
Depends on the
originally?
crime, of course. I mean, if it's a
Like 3
a
times.
misdemeanor, they'll go through the deportation process.
It depends again. I'm calling another penalty.
Guys, all right. One more time, and we're gonna have to get a refill. I'm not gonna be able to keep up with all these.
Okay,
depends.
back to
Depends.
Tiger King.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Oh
wait,
no, this
wait.
is really cool. No,
Back
he's not
to-
finished.
I'll finish mine, then I have a question for Pat.
Sure.
Oh,
So, it depends on
I
the
object, counselor.
If it's a
Sustained.
felony, they're going to be tried for
Okay.
a felony in the United States. If it's a less serious crime, they'll be deported because it probably doesn't carry prison time, for example. And in terms of them coming back, I mean, the government can only control so much.
Right.
And to your point about opportunities, like perception of opportunities, folks keep coming back to the United States. Why? Because there's money here.
Right.
And there's jobs here. Right?
Opportunity.
There's what? Opportunity.
Yeah.
So people come back for that opportunity. Question for you, Iran. What about the Iran-Russia relationship? Is that a concern?
Yeah, so that's where the waters really get muddy. So Iran, Russia, a little bit of Iran, China, and this is where terrorism has almost become. I don't want to draw too many parallels, but how Vietnam became the battlefield for the Cold War. I think terrorism and the global war on terror has become kind of the battlefield for what we have going on with Russia, what we have going on with China. Syria is probably a better example, but a lot of what's going on in Syria is Iranian-based or backed organizations. What's going on there, and they're backed by Russia. So you kind of get to this very gray area of what's going on, and definitely a frenemy relationship. But no, that's a great point, and it's such a muddy. If you look at the web of what goes on, especially with Iran, and I will separate Iran from the Al Qaeda, ISIS, Sunni and Shia sects very different. They're mortal enemies as well. The thing that's makes Iran a little scarier than ISIS is they are state-backed, and they have state-type weapons. They have cruise missiles. They have all kinds of things. And that's the big worry with Iran developing nuclear capabilities. We don't know whose hands that is going to fall in. I would say Soleimani was the head of their National Guard, if you will. And that was kind of their more radical wing of their military, which was almost borderline terrorism, but definitely back terrorism. But that's the worry too, is those things, those ties with Russia. And that's why I think pretty unique way to take out a leader, like they did a drone strike in another country.
I feel like that was almost parallel with the Jack Ryan series, and the guy's name was I think it was Suleimani.
It was kind of weird. You're on Amazon. You're like,
what?
Wait,
Is this really
am I
happening?
streaming? Whatever.
Well, you watch Homeland, you watch Jack Ryan, you watch. There was a great show. Gosh, I remember the name, but it was essentially a regime change and a caliphate. It was on E for a while, and there's some crazy shows. You're like, oh man, that's right from the front page.
So it's so close. It used to be like there would be like a shred of reality. Now there's like maybe a few shreds of reality in these shows. But like there's skirmishes like daily between U.S. troops in Syria and Russians. I'm there like they'll kind of get close and they'll kind of flex a little bit. But honestly, I mean Russians just don't give a crap, man. They'll do whatever. Like they're a vaccine. Boom. Putin's giving it to his daughter. Bam, bam, bam. I'm serious. I mean, that's whatever.
He's doing Tigers by riding a horse.
Yeah,
Ivan Drago.
exactly. Right? Look at Ivan Drago from Rocky IV.
Ivan Drago, right? Yeah, Rocky IV.
That's my perception.
You know how many guys they killed, like trying to be the first to get in space? The cosmonauts. They like blowing up rockets and everything. They didn't care. They're like, we're gonna be first. We don't care. Like there's like no rules or regulations or anything. So, but the Tiger King still is here and still exists.
And it entertained us for months.
Months.
All the main memes, you know.
Does the Tiger King be as big? If we weren't kind of at home in that situation, does that become as big of a I don't know, would it be a pop following, cult following, whatever?
Well, you said after your third time watching, you really started to kind of relate.
I became Joe Exotic. Yeah, I regretted watching it. I mean, I finished it and I had this like emotional, like it's over. I can't believe it. And then as my emotions processed a little bit, I was like, kind of like, why did I do that? You know, it was not
I wasted
good.
so much of my life.
Yeah.
But you kind of feel bad for the dude too, man.
A little bit.
I mean,
I feel bad for all those people involved and the animals. I mean,
yeah.
gotta feel bad for the animals.
You feel bad for the guy that ended up getting his teeth fixed, but the entire show they showed him with bad teeth. Joe Exotic's husband.
Which one? Wait.
One of his husbands.
Which one? Which one
I think he was number 2.
Yeah,
no, was he one?
He was the first one, I think.
It's been a while. I only watched it one time.
I think that's when it got really sad. Is when he didn't one of them accidentally shoot himself or something crazy like that.
Accident. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was
an
it.
accident.
And then all of a sudden, it was
Jacked
kind
up
of
story.
well, it was kind of
Playing
goofy.
with
Like,
the gun,
wow,
and
people like this exist, and then all of a sudden, and then this guy shot himself, and it's kind of like, wow, it's something now.
I think the allure of
I
it
can't
was
laugh at it anymore.
regular people realizing people like this exist out there, and there's this whole world of tiger cubs petting and selling.
Yeah, the whole
and,
subculture was exposed.
this underground, illegal activity of selling tiger
The crazy
cubs.
dude on that show was like the dude up in I don't know. I guess it's like somewhere Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, Myrtle Beach is not far.
Yeah.
or something that he's like the
flowing locks,
Dalai Lama of like
Yeah.
these like he has like a harem and like all these tiger trainers and stuff.
There were several crazy people.
Oh,
on the show.
there's several crazy people.
Well, I think part of what its success was that you were at home not doing anything, and it was entertaining, and you also were feeling kind of bad about your current situation. So then you watch Tiger King, and you're like, well, at least I'm not them.
It made you
At
feel
least I
less
don't
bad.
make $100 a week living with the Tiger King.
I'm not married to Carol Baskins. Yeah, there's kind
I'm
of,
just telling you, if
Sure.
the baddest show right now on Netflix, which is Cobra Kai, would have come out on March 15th, it would have been, would it be Emmy winning, Oscar winning? What is the?
so
what is the
Netflix
what would
came
you
out
win?
last week and basically said we need to start making content again. Like they invested so much money on content, and everybody's like, "I'm done. We're done. I've come to the end of the internet. I've come to the end of Netflix." But no, it is interesting how you think about we were all growing up. You watched ABC, NBC, CBS, maybe a little bit of Fox,
That's it.
and now it's like I need to have what subscription? Oh, it's only $4.99 a month. Like throw that
Yeah.
one on too, but. We have gotten to the bottom of that after the pandemic.
But seriously, have you watched Cobra Kai?
I have not.
I haven't watched it yet.
I have not either.
I watched
All
a
right,
little bit.
so I'm not going to spoil it, but it basically picks up, the guy Johnny Lawrence.
Sweep the
put your
leg.
body back, yeah.
Sweep the leg, Johnny.
Cobra Kai. Basically, it's fast forwards like 30 years into the future, and now like Daniel LaRusso is like he's like this huge like car dealership magnate in whatever town there in California they live in, and he's like down on his luck. He's like an alcoholic. He's odd job guy, and like he sees LaRusso everywhere. It's pretty funny, and I won't get into it. But you said something the other day which was kind of cool, and I fact checked and looked it up.
Yeah, did you look it up?
There's this like YouTube. I'm gonna let you explain it, but this YouTube video of like the alternate universe of Karate Kid, kind of it. And so explain to like what that little
Yeah, there's like
that
this fan
concept is.
theory where Daniel-san and Mr. Miyagi are actually the bad guys. And like Johnny is a good guy and he's doing karate the way you're supposed to. And then Miyagi comes along. He's kind of like a pseudo pedophile and takes Daniel-san under his wing. And then he uses an illegal kick to win in the tournament. And it's been a while since I watched it, but it was pretty compelling. And I'm not like a Karate Kid fan, so to speak, but
It sounds like you are a little bit.
Well, it's only like 4 minutes though. The YouTube video
So-
too.
so,
But
yeah,
John's
if you watch
defense,
the
it's like
YouTube-
4.5 minutes. It's
Yeah.
not a Tiger King 14-hour like.
watch a docuseries.
So it's almost like, hey, treat the leg, Johnny. Okay, Daniel, crane kick to the face. Okay,
See.
take him out.
Yeah, well, I think there's like rules in karate where I don't.
I'm pretty sure crane kick to the face is not allowed.
Yeah, and also,
I mean,
who doesn't see the flying crane coming anyway?
Well, is it weird in
Johnny
that
was
movie
skilled
that
enough
they
to block
don't you
that.
have to wear like the thing like on your head,
Yeah.
like the
Headgear?
padding or whatever?
In sparring, I believe so, but I'm
Maybe
not sure.
toddlers.
So would a what is it? A
waiver?
release would a disclaimer that I signed and my kid can go and not wear the padding in the sparring? Would that have worked? I guess.
I think the better question, Elizabeth Shue, best 80s
Yeah.
actress there is.
Beautiful.
That, Cocktail.
Adventure to babysitting.
Oh, yeah. She,
Yeah.
She was in Leaving Las Vegas
With Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
When he went off the rails.
which is a really sad movie.
It is.
Really
Very
sad.
sad.
She was in Destroyer, the new movie with
she
Tom
was.
Hanks.
She looked great. She's aged like a fine wine. I'm a big Elizabeth Shue fan.
Elizabeth.
Have you
I
seen that
forgot
movie,
that was
Destroyer?
her
Yeah.
in- I haven't
Yeah.
seen that movie. Is that legit? That
He
movie
says it's
Destroyer? Is it-
legit.
I'll tell you, the thing I was explaining to Bill the other day, first of all, the way we fight submarines hasn't changed much since World War II. But the thing that I kind of got from it, again, just retired a couple months ago being a destroyer captain, every decision on that ship is the captain's. And watching Tom Hanks, I thought did a great job of portraying that, just kind of the burden of what that was. But no, I thought the movie was really entertaining. It's like an hour and 28 minutes, which is a perfect length. It's like 1.5 episodes of Tiger King, so it was good. But no, I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it. It's a good movie.
It's good.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Destroyer.
another $4.99 a month, Apple Plus or whatever. It's another.
I know, but they add up, don't
Add
they?
them on.
They
Do you
do.
guys cut the cable? Or do you have cable?
I've got cable. When you do the math on it, you cut the cable. You don't save much.
Yeah.
Hot
I'd say
take,
it's a little
unpopular
bit.
opinion, but
I cut
Somebody
the
fact
cable
check
10 years ago.
I did
Anytime
too,
still
but
pay
I'm
what it
probably I'm at thresholded now because I did the Hulu Plus thing
Yeah.
with
Start
live
stacking
TV.
it.
So, but that Netflix and like I guess Amazon Prime it comes with like the Amazon
Every-
Prime that you're going to get anyway.
it's hard not to get that.
But I
way.
agree with John. When you do the double play, they've now costed internet so
Yeah.
high, it's almost worth.
What do you get a fax line though? Is your triple play thing like your third thing? You have to always get three. You're like, okay, I'll take the internet, the cable, and crap. What else do I need?
Bill still has a rotary phone with his social media accounts, so he's
Somehow, though,
How do you post something on a rotary phone?
Look, here's the
How
thing.
that works?
It's an iPhone. It's an iPhone.
he's got the rotary
So
phone.
more people today, in the last probably 6 months, if not a year, complain about Facebook.
I'll tell you.
Complain. You know, I've never joined Facebook. I don't have that problem. One less
If you
thing
want to get
complain
off
about.
social media, watch this Netflix. Stick to the Netflix theme.
They
of,
listen to you.
I think it's called Hacked or Unhacked. It's about this guy who wanted to get his privacy data from Facebook, and it has to do with Cambridge Analytica and that whole thing. But you want to know what they know about you?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you do.
My
wanna
wife
know.
and I were talking probably a couple weeks ago at dinner, and she brought up a subject. She went to her Facebook like 20 minutes later.
It's there
It was
advertising.
advertising it. Okay.
This is scary
So do you
stuff.
think Alexa or whatever thing
Well,
was listening? And
it could
others-
be
They
any
know so
of,
much about you. They predicted that you were going to think.
well, it
that.
could be any of these devices. So you might not have the microphone turned off on your phone or on an Alexa device. They hear it. 20 minutes later, you're there, and it's being advertised to you the same product.
So my
device.
point is
Oh, it's
this:
scarier
first
than
of
that,
all, Pat would have Elizabeth Shue on there when he probably looks at
T-shirts
his
of
Facebook
Elizabeth.
later.
Mhm.
And two, I'm ahead of the curve.
You're at the
There's no
Dude, if
kind of
Elizabeth Shue shows up on your thing, you gotta like send that out to everybody
Oh,
because
I
that
don't
will
know.
be
Yeah.
that's gonna freak. We are going old
Well,
school,
Elizabeth
dude.
Shue's
We're
probably
going.
already in his browser history, so
She's not.
That's a good point. And so you think this is all like the aliens listening to us and stuff?
No.
I mean, ultimently, there's something
no,
bigger.
it's scarier.
There's
than
something
that
bigger.
because
There's
it's
something
not
bigger,
that they're
right? Let's go
listening
deep.
to
Let's
you.
go down
It's
this
that
rabbit
they're
hole for a
able to
second.
predict that you would
Right.
be looking at that.
And that's like the AI. That's the scary thing about what AI.
Artificial intelligence, they're doing all these algorithms about things that you've put on social media, things you've liked, all the posts, and then they're also listening through the microphones or through the Alexas if you don't have that feature turned off, so that they can start doing targeted advertising to you, and then they can charge the brand companies more money.
But
to do
I
that.
find it very interesting the push-pull right now with big tech. Apple's newest commercial is Apple's newest all their advertising is about protecting your data. They had the lady yelling her credit card number and the guy yelling his beat per minute. And he said, these are things you don't want public. And then Mark Zuckerberg doing the same thing, but yet they're still exploiting it for advertising. And so it's very much a push-pull.
Once again, most of us do not read the terms of service with any of these sites. And if you did, if you spent 3 days reading it, you'd then realize exactly what they're allowed to do with your
That's why we have this guy with us. That's why he's on retainer.
The question comes up with Facebook. Can Facebook control information, which they've been doing, especially this year with the presidential election? Of course they can. It's a private company.
But I will tell you, having just gone to an event with Bill, the lawyer, that included some terms of service, he also does not read them.
I know.
He said, just sign it, nobody reads them.
Well, what I find interesting is
he wouldn't work home with them.
You read the first three, right? The first three sentences?
How YouTube does takes a lot of videos down. And just for controversial issues, and it's almost as if they can take whatever down that they want.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's selective, right? And some people might think, well, you take that down, but you're not taking this down. What's the deal there? And some people think it is somewhat political, and others just think it's based on, sensitive content or whatever.
And my response is this: one, the First Amendment doesn't protect an individual vis-a-vis a private company. That's first of all. That's most important. Second,
when you say what is that again? You said vis-a-vis. What is that? What do you mean by that?
In relation to.
Okay, so
I've never used vis-a-vis.
I've actually heard it, but I've never understood what it meant. So thank you for explaining that to me. Go ahead.
Also never
to all our
in
listeners
law school. So
vis-a-vis in relation to.
In relation to. So that's one. There's no First Amendment protections, and two, we live in a capitalistic society. So if people don't like Facebook, they don't like the way they're controlling their information, it's like cable news. You see other things are created, you don't watch it, or you don't join it, but you kind of have this competition that develops. So you look at cable news, my prediction in social media, over time you're going to have a Facebook, you're going to have another platform, another company.
Well, you're starting to see that with Instagram, and people are starting to move from Instagram to this app called Parler, which seems to be, it doesn't censor any content, right? It's really First Amendment, pro First Amendment. So, I landed my name on there. Why not?
Is it like MySpace?
Yeah.
Just like that.
But you know what we should do? Two things we should do. Hold that thought. The first thing is we should create have one of us create this kind of alter identity where we try to see how long it takes by doing certain things on social media. It takes for that AI to start hey, I like this activity versus that activity start adding how much data do they have to collect? If
they're predicting our lunch.
Predicting, right? Yeah, how long? So whoever wants to do that is cool. And the second thing we should take a quick pause. Since we're actually on location here at Really Good Beer Stop, we should get a refill because I think these have gone down a little quicker than I was predicting they would.
Yeah, it depends.
It does depend. It depends.
I got a little bit left.
Say it a few times. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a quick pause, and then we'll jump back into this and just fascinating conversation. And I hope you're enjoying it. If you're listening to us or watching us, this will be a great time to grab your own beverage.
And we're back. Where were we, Brendan?
Yeah. Well, first off, they'll use the female restroom. Just then, because there's again. I know I told you to, but I also didn't say that. Listen, dude, you're off the grid, man. You're like a ghost, so it doesn't matter.
Well,
so random Bill used the random bathroom.
He does have a MySpace account. Let's clarify.
Does that still exist? Can you go to MySpace.com? Is there anything on
he
there?
may have identified as a female for 30 seconds.
Or just
use the bathroom.
It depends, right? Just as long as it's good. And we're on location. This is a cool spot. If you're in the the Northeast Florida area. Checking out Really Good Beer Stop it's legit. It's legit, and I think they're doing a nice job here. We were talking about tech before the break and big tech and everything, and everyone's there's this whole conspiracy Bill Gates is trying to inject a subsonic or whatever it's called microchip with this coronavirus vaccine, right?
He's not. I mean.
He's not trying to, but he's trying to fund.
Well, no, I mean he is. So it's not even a conspiracy theory. He is.
Yeah,
he's trying to get you on that vaccine.
I think the conspiracy theory goes with what his intentions with that are.
Right, and if you think about it, I'm not gonna get too.
No, go for it, dude. Rabbit hole. That's what we're here for. We should call it
biblical on you, but when you talk about the mark of the beast and a little chip in your hand or your forehead with Bill Gates and all that technology. I mean, think about it. If you have a chip in your hand, it's RFID. You walk in a grocery store, get all your groceries. They got RFID chips in them. You walk out of the store without paying, deducts it from your bank account, you're good.
Dude,
Sounds
if you
convenient.
try to, I guess, riff
Now-
at me, can use that as a verb. Use RFID as a verb. How would you use that as a verb?
You just
Hey,
got
I'm gonna call
RFID,
riffed
bro.
you? Did you?
What?
RFID?
You got-
You just got riffed? You just got riffed.
Yeah,
You
I
got
mean, I'm just thinking like from the convenience side of things, and with the way that the world's monetary system is going right now, with basically Venmo and all these cash apps, and how Bitcoin even. I mean, I'm not a big believer in that, but the further that goes down the road and the rabbit trail, it makes a little bit of sense and it becomes more convenient for people. I just don't know how badly I'd want a chip put in under my skin.
No way, dude. That's crazy. And
Yeah.
I think, honestly, that gets like no fly in America. That's not going to fly. It's a no fly zone. I think you'd be like, oh, this is great. And then I just think that's how we are as a country, which is cool. That's how you want to be as a country.
Right.
But I think you're like, no way, dude. Not lambs to the slaughter, man. Like,
I think there's a lot of people that
put
are
the
like
chip in there.
lining up to do it.
Really?
I'm not saying I'm one of them.
No
But
way.
I think
I
you'd
mean,
be
is it
surprised.
that hard to just pull? Look, we're so lazy that we don't even carry cash. Most of us, right? I mean, typically.
But how much? I mean, I
know,
have
Chris, you don't
I
carry
think
cash.
208
Cash wallet.
passwords on my phone that if it looks at my face, I don't have to enter it.
Yeah.
Your
Apple
phone
Pay.
already looks at your face, though.
Yeah,
And you don't have to enter it.
but again, all these things, and I think kind of echoing what John said, I think a lot of us kind of want that. I'm a big believer, so I may be on the other side of this. I don't care who's got my data. So they don't have access to my accounts and they don't have access to sensitive things. I don't really care. Because I'm going to, and when the preferences come up, I'm like, yeah, I was thinking about buying that.
An Elizabeth Shue autographed portrait. That's exactly what I was about to buy.
It's like pizza. I want a pizza.
It's like Christmas morning all the time.
Who loves
Like,
I love
there it is.
pizza? Who doesn't love pizza?
It's a sign.
No, but
She loves me.
Apple Pay, whatever your preferences on that stuff, it's made things easier. And I think there's something to be said for that. And I think obviously there's something, getting back to capitalism, there's money to be made for that.
Sure.
Now, do I want a chip embedded in my body?
That's what I mean.
Yeah, that's a little much.
Part
But
of the
if you had your medical history, think about it. God forbid you had an issue and you're on the roadside and they can figure out who you are quickly. I don't know if it's such a bad thing.
They could barcode you.
And the fact is that I think humans accept convenience over risk. And I think that, to your point, it's convenient having everything on your computer or your iPhone. And if you really wanted to protect your confidentiality, protect your information, you wouldn't function that way.
Mm-hmm.
Not you, but
Well,
us.
I mean, an iPhone is just an extension of your hand, which is really just artificial intelligence in your hand. As fast as you can think it, and as fast as your thumb can move or your fingers to type it in, you're getting the answer to any question.
Which
that
is
you
pretty
want
fast
in
for
the
most
world.
people.
I mean,
Pretty
any
fast.
question that you want to know the answer to. And Elon Musk talks about this a little bit with his whole Neuralink thing that he's coming up with, to where he wants to take even away the phone in the hand and the time lapse it takes for you to type in the question or to say it into Google to basically link it in your brain where you think it and you can immediately have that.
Would they have to implant something in your brain then?
I don't know. You have to ask Elon.
He's
you know,
solving
I mean,
problems I don't think anybody
Would
really
I have to give him consent? I have to
Yeah,
definitely
I mean,
give him
I mean, I
check
think
for acknowledged
I think
consent.
he's focused on.
I think I'm going off
cars
grid,
right now.
man. I think honestly, I'm just sitting here chatting with you guys for like 25, 30 minutes. I think I'm going off grid, man.
I mean, we could all go move to Montana and
I'm good
shoot
to
some
go
elk
off
with
it.
do some bow hunting.
You could live off the grid. I think in America you could actually live off the grid probably easier than you could live in some other countries.
Right.
Off the
Oh,
grid.
for sure. Yeah.
Well, hey,
I think there's with the chip though, there's like a balance of liberty and convenience, and everybody's got their own little scale. And like, I'll give that up if it's a little more convenient. But my fear is like, okay, well, what happens when it's tipped all the way to convenient, and I've lost all of my liberties, and I don't even know how it happened.
So you're right because you're willing, like anything. It's push pull. There's always something. Like if I'm choosing this path, it means that I'm gonna have to give up something somewhere else.
right.
And that's cool. And everything. You say, yeah, this is great. And then, but what happens if the dynamic changes and some laws change and some all of a sudden, hey, the Patriot Act sounded like an awesome thing, but then that means that they can listen to this conversation we're having right now. If someone were to say, hey, I think I heard the word terrorist because they were talking about Iran earlier on that show, this gets pinged. And now, there's dudes at the CIA or NSA listening to Dudeology show, which, by the way, if you are anywhere, just please make sure you share, like, subscribe, right, on all your, on iTunes and iHeartRadio and all those things. A little bit. But that's the crazy thing. There is a push-pull. There's always going to be a push-pull with everything.
I think that's one of the biggest fears of a lot of people you tie it back to 2020 and some of the direction that the country's going is like, at what point are we for the betterment of society giving up too much liberty? Or the betterment of something, exchanging our freedom and our identity as Americans.
as a social experiment, it's a really interesting one to talk about 2020 and coronavirus and COVID-19, right? Mm-hmm. And how much of your rights are you willing to give up, and for how long, right? To protect society and from it getting worse. I think a lot of us at this point are like, hey, I'm sick of wearing a mask. I want to go out. I want to do stuff. I want to have fun.
Well, push-pull. I think people are saying, hey, okay, I'm willing to risk exposure to this thing that I don't know much about, which would be COVID-19 or the coronavirus, because I want, because economically I need to be like either at work or whatever. So there is that. I think like, hey, what's your risk? And yet, listen, if you're somebody maybe who has like immunocompromisation or something, and you can't do that, maybe your risk tolerance looks different.
Right.
Maybe you said, hey, I'm willing to. I can't do that because I don't want to be, in a situation medically that is worse off. And I think when you look at it, like it went way crazy on like March, April, whatever. That was like, hey, the whole country's like shutting down basically. I think now the pendulum, you swing back. People are like, hey, just be responsible, dude. Like,
be smart.
Be smart, right? Like, look, if you got to inconvenience yourself to wear, is it really that much of an inconvenience to wear a mask into the grocery store? Not really.
It's a series of risk management decisions, but it all comes with information. And in March, April, I don't think we had the information on what this was doing. We saw the death rate was off the charts, and with very little data behind what was causing that. Now we're in September, and it feels like we're in the 108th day of March, but we're in September, and it's kind of, I think people understand the differences. And I look at, are you going to go in a restaurant that's fully full? Are you going to go to a sporting event? Yeah, probably not right now. But can you go sit outside somewhere? Can you do different things? I think you make those risk management decisions, and each of us rationalize that. I'm sitting here with 5 of us that are relatively healthy. Probably the youngest guy, and his youngest guys are in their mid-30s, and then some of the older guys are in their late 40s. Late 40s.
Late 40s. We're the same age, dude.
Well,
He looks older than I do, but we're the same age. You look older than anybody.
I do. I'm very premature.
Silver Fox.
I think we're getting at is, I think we're going to go to a football game if we can this year.
What's fascinating, and I think what's fascinating about the COVID response right now, and I think even initially, is that different pockets of the United States responded different. Like some went into quarantine. I think New York probably should have, because it was, looked bad.
Highly populous too.
Highly populous, congested, a lot of people dying. And now you still have certain states, like I'm originally from Chicago, they're still kind of in quarantine, right? There's some loosening up. Mm-hmm. And here in Northeast Florida, things were a little bit, more relaxed for a longer period of time. And I think actually now, working in healthcare as a lawyer, we kind of, like in this area, kind of have it right. Your point, like, okay, we're willing to wear masks, we're willing not to see grandpa and grandma if it's dangerous, but we're also out doing things. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, and I think it becomes a personal choice as to what because I think the facts are out there enough now, and it's still, there's a lot of information and digging through all of it. And, you guys know, I got the virus back in late June, early July. I was sick for about 48 hours, sick-ish, and I'm fine as a healthy 40-something-year-old.
And it's going to take 3 to 5 years, in my opinion, at least, for the science to kind of begin to understand, like, the scope. Like, did we overreact? Did we underreact? Was it right? The vaccine may or may not come. And, as we know, vaccines aren't always all that effective. Like, you get the flu vaccine, people get the flu vaccine, they get the flu. It's not a guarantee.
I want to back up Brandon's sales model that vaccines are always effective.
Mm-hmm. And for all our listeners out there, we are sitting here with a live and well COVID survivor.
Yes,
yeah.
We
Congratulations.
are.
As a joke with my family as a survivor. But I think it's interesting.
He's got the superhuman blood cells now.
And I've donated plasma. I've done all the things I'm supposed to do. But as a healthy 41-year-old, I was sick for 48 hours and I was fine. I did the lock away, did everything I was supposed to do. And I think that's what we need everybody to do. If you don't feel well, don't do things. But as schools opened up last week here, and you've heard very little issues with that. And I know a couple of our wives are teachers. They're dealing with kind of what that looks like in 2020. But at the end of the day, I think you need to look at the kind of whole society model as to, can we shut things down again? I don't think we can. I don't think it's good for the economy. I don't think it's good for mental health. I think it's good for a number of things. But Bill, I agree. I think we're doing a great job here in this area. And they've taken heat for that. Sure. But when I look at colleges opening back up, the cases skyrocketed, as you would expect they would.
Yeah.
People were, you had more collisions happening, you're going to have more. Yeah. But I think the underlying stats, hospitalization rates going up or death rates going up, risk management? Are we making the appropriate risk management decisions? And I'll tell you, our public health professionals and even our politicians that are in office right now, it's a tough decision to make on what's allowed. But I think it's been a very interesting societal experiment. The SEC's playing, the ACC's playing.
Big Ten's
The
not.
Big Ten's not.
Yeah.
You know, is it different in Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan? Nah, it's not.
I feel like we're in a galactic chess game.
Right.
Those guys hate, and seriously, so there was like a month ago, there was like some alien stuff that came out about from Roswell. Some scientists were like, dude, we found some stuff out here. We can't trace it to any element of this world of that we know. And in 2 weeks, there's some more stuff that's going to be declassified. Well, so maybe it is. But let me tell you what was weird though. It was weirder than that is watching the Kentucky Derby yesterday with like no fans.
Yeah.
It's like, there's like no fans.
What was
Did you guys watch it?
what's weird is that it was almost an afterthought because it was. And living in Kentucky for 17 years, you know, like in May, first weekend of May, it's just in the air. You just know that it's happening, and then it snuck up on me yesterday. It's strange.
Someone's like, you want to come to a derby party? I thought it was like a joke. Like, hey, we're going to watch past derbies, and you can get, is Barbaro going to break his leg? Oh, yes.
Well, John, have you gone to the Derby?
Yes.
So I went once, and I will tell you, it is the greatest show of Americana. Every tax bracket, every socioeconomic, it is unbelievable to watch. And to watch those empty stands and shit, it was a little depressing.
It was weird.
But it was, what a great, authentic run, a great race.
Like the guy, Bob
Baffert.
Bob Baffert. Wasn't he with the Triple Crown winner a few years
Yeah,
ago?
he's
Or
just-
like he's like
sixth Derby.
he's like the magic train, or not magic trainer, but he's got the touch. He's like the Bill Belichick of horse trainers.
He's also 41 with early gray hair. So he's not
I
41.
will say,
a little bit lower than that.
I was over at John's house yesterday, and they started playing on
My old Kentucky
my
home.
old Kentucky home. He shed a single tear.
Did he?
I mean,
Cheers.
he did.
Were you guys drinking, what's the bourbon?
We were drinking Bolt bourbon, but
Yeah, we were drinking
Nice.
At least it's a Kentucky bourbon. But it was actually the first time
No,
that
what was
I
that
didn't
bourbon
feel like
that
a
you
Kentucky
brought? Blanton's?
Blanton's. That was good.
Well, it's good too, though.
Yeah, well, it was good. Yeah, just hearing the words of my old Kentucky home and not being in Kentucky was a different thing. You're talking about the weirdness of 2020. Like, we moved during 2020.
During the mix,
Yeah.
like during the
we listed our house for
COVID
sale
or
like
whatever.
March 1st.
Wow.
And then 2 weeks later, everybody was shut down and we couldn't do showings anymore.
Wow. So when you're looking at your place you bought here, are you like, hey, show it to me virtually? Or did they let you come in or sanitize yourself? Come in like
did a little virtual tour,
hazmat
and
suit?
we're renting it, so it wasn't like our risk was a little lower, but
Yeah.
just watched it on a video.
That's crazy. So because you're kind of pretty dialed into kind of human performance and like nutrition, has there been any like kind of crazy? There's always like some sort of trend in like eat this, don't eat that type thing, or you take this, grind up rhinoceros tusk, or this is great for you.
every morning wake up and drink some like lemon.
Drink lemon
tea,
water, tea,
yeah.
whatever. Has there been anything specific because of like kind of COVID-19 that people are like, yeah, you got this is the immuno booster that will kill COVID or coronavirus, anything?
There has been one study that I think is, and I don't know why it's not getting more mainstream press, is that and I'll paraphrasing the statistics, somebody fact check it, but it's pretty close. Like 96% of the people who died of COVID-19, I think were deficient in vitamin D. So vitamin D has been like the one thing they can isolate and be like, yeah, if you're deficient in vitamin D, you're going to be at risk for that thing. But, and a caveat to that is the majority of Americans are deficient in vitamin D anyway because they don't get enough sun. People don't go outside.
Right.
Sure. Well,
Depending on where you live.
and I heard
out in the winter,
something
you're
at
not
one
gonna have
point
it.
that like if you took like a line of latitude and from like Atlanta, Georgia is basically and drew it across the state. If you live north of that, you probably should take vitamin D supplements.
Yes.
Like you're not going to. You guys really kind of in like a really good spot here, being we
Right.
probably get too much vitamin D.
Definitely in the southern states, it's been lower.
But the
as
death
a
rate,
whole,
like
yeah,
the
death rate,
mortality rate.
There's also been some talk about just being outside and the ultraviolet rays also killing the coronavirus.
Mhm.
So there's some validity to that, I think, where we might get outside a little bit more than somebody up north. So there could be something to that as well. But hey, listeners out there, fact check us. Let us know if we're right or wrong.
John, you also said, I remember we talked about you shouldn't eat bats from a live market.
There's a study that hasn't been proved.
How about just bats even from the not live market, just any market or
If
any
if bat meat is high in protein, though,
It's just risk reward, like
You got to cook the bat.
You gotta cook
just
that
cook it,
first.
yeah.
What
Fry
about
some oil, a little salt.
what
pepper,
about
good.
placenta?
I've never eaten placenta.
You have not
But there
eaten
is a
placenta.
school of thought that it is
Ah.
high in a lot of things. So women will birth their placenta and then they'll actually save it And I don't know if they make smoothies out of it.
No,
Got a
dude.
little kale, maybe steam it. I don't know.
Soups? You've had placenta soup?
No, I have not.
Maybe blackened.
Placenta.
There's a lot of human
Check it
performance
out.
things that I'll listen to any of them, but I draw the line somewhere, and eating like placenta is probably.
Especially if it's someone else's placenta, like you come over and they're like, "What are you? Oh, what is that?
How nice
Oh,
little
it's
slice.
just some placenta."
So what are your thoughts on essential oils, John?
So,
Let's
there's
get
another
into that.
Netflix show that we watched about.
I haven't watched it yet. How was it?
There's a show called Essential Oils.
No,
on
I think
Netflix.
it's about
called
debunking essential
Unwell.
oils.
Yeah, I think it's called
But-
Unwell.
Sure.
But,
It's like
uh,
peppermint and stuff.
Okay, and I think that there's a psychosomatic effect to that. Like if you're smelling lavender and it calms you, like I don't know if it's a lavender. Or
Psychosomatic. It's not a legal term. It's a medical term. It basically says that your brain is kind of is believing something so much that it's causing like a physical
Yeah,
response.
kind of like maybe a stronger placebo effect. There's probably a lot of that to essential oils, and then there's also probably some medicinal benefit to some mints or something when you're putting it out into the universe. And then there's also the whole underbelly of the multi-level marketing scheme that is essential oil stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know where you want to go.
I had a dude that worked for me, and he was probably into all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I'll say I didn't hire this guy, so I was inherited him. And they kept the placenta, and I was like, "Oh, what did you like pulverize it or something and take it in a pill?" He's like, "No, it was frozen, and you would like pull it out and like slice like a thin like strip of like tenderloin off of it and like saute it up with
So
some
like
eggs
a
and
wedding
stuff."
topper? You do it on your
It's-
anniversary?
I don't know. It's like, hey, grab the placenta. I'm like, that's the most disgusting
On your
thing I've
kid's
ever heard.
birthday, you
That
see
can't be
it?
good. That can't be good. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it is good for you, but I don't know. That just doesn't
Even if
sound.
it is, I mean, like, what percent is it moving the needle at all?
Well,
Like,
there's a line of like
anybody would do it if it
cannibalism,
was
I
really
think, right?
beneficial,
There's a line of like things that may be good for you, but maybe they're not. I mean, that's an ethical or moral dilemma. Do you eat human remains?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
Wow.
if you're on the plane in the Andes that crack. I mean, if you have to, maybe you have to.
I mean, I was watching
Choice.
an episode of Seinfeld yesterday, and George was asking Jerry, "Hey, man, if we were, on an island and you had to eat somebody, who'd you eat?" And he said he'd eat Kramer. He was, "Am I not good enough?" George was, upset because he's got more good meat, and Jerry said, of course, Kramer's got more muscle, so it's probably higher in protein.
Did Kramer have more muscle though? I didn't find any of them to be that. That's svelte.
George is going to be really,
George is going to be more like
Jimmy can jump high.
because Jimmy can jump high.
What was one of your favorite episodes? That was a great show too.
It was.
I mean, there's some funny shows. Actually, there's not any funny shows now. I think all the funny shows died with The Office.
I have
don't
a
you?
lot, I can't. It's funny. My parents will ask me if you watch XYZ on network TV. I cannot remember the last time I watched a network TV show with Netflix and all the other alternatives.
Modern
out there.
Family, I think I watched.
It was good. It got a little long. It got kind of
It
like
just
a little
kept
lame,
going.
though.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
it
throw
was
this out there, but you guys think
The Office was the last
The
one
Office
really
was
good.
The
great.
Office
one.
is the phenomenal.
That's
phenomenal
great.
show.
That's been the most watched show during COVID.
What is your?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go around then. Have you watched this, John? This
The
show.
Office?
This show, The Office. You know of this?
Yeah, I know,
Okay.
yeah.
Is there an alternate universe YouTube that I can watch about The Office where Michael Scott's actually really cool? Dwight's really cool and Jim's
Everybody's
adorable.
worked somewhere that correlates to the way the office was run.
Yeah.
Whether you worked for that guy, or you knew a Dwight, or just that office experience.
And I think we all see ourselves as Jim.
Yeah.
Every one of us is like, we're the Jim.
Who are you, Jim? No one's like, I'm Kevin.
But it's funny to me watching this, and our kids' ages in here probably age from your girls, what, 3 or 4?
4 and 5.
4 and 5, to 16, 17. My kids are really in the office. And,
yeah.
But what's funny is we'll watch it with them, and you're like, not this episode.
Yeah,
like, not
And The Office has so much, I think, to your point, truth to it.
It really does.
So I was sitting in this interview probably a year ago as a senior executive position. And of course, this big table, everyone's interviewing this one person. And the question was, which is always asked, what's one of your weaknesses? Explain it to us. And the candidate basically said that sometimes he pushes people too hard, but he wants to achieve big things. And that's what it takes. My mind went to an Office episode where Michael Scott was interviewing, and they said, the question was to him, what are your strengths and weaknesses? He said, let me start with my weaknesses, because really, they're my strengths.
He said, and I don't know if I'll get them all.
And the guy was answering.
I work too hard I care too much, and I can't remember the third one. Sometimes
My weaknesses are actually my best. Great.
But the interview I was in, the guy's answer was exactly that. He's
Did you
like,
call him
I
on
do
it?
these things that some people perceive as bad,
Was
but
he wearing
actually I'm
a,
super
a
successful.
female suit? That's one of my favorite episodes. When Michael Scott comes to the office wearing the female suit.
They're like, is that a women's suit? All right, favorite episode, Chris. I mean, if you just it's top of the head, first one that comes to mind. Like first one, if you're like, hey, dude, let's go watch this episode. First one that comes to mind.
I'm gonna say Michael burning his foot.
What hurts? What's he say? What's he asked the doctor? What is worse, a head injury or a foot? He tries to stick his
Michael burning his foot with the George Foreman.
That's a classic one.
Parkour episode.
Yeah.
Oh, hardcore.
Hardcore.
There's some
Parkour.
That's just funny. You can just go like run off a tree somewhere and like 4 people will be like parkour.
Well, the best part of that episode, in my opinion, is when Andy, jumps off of the top of the truck or the building into what he thinks is a Bob Vance refrigerator box, but it's empty.
Totally.
And he just
Totally.
Who is Dwight Schrute's cousin?
Most.
Yeah,
I think Andy's one of the underappreciated superstars of that show.
He is.
Like everybody knows Andy.
When Andy punches the wall, he's so angry. He goes to anger management.
There's some good. So we watched the one the other day of when Michael Scott finds out that the one guy is having an affair, and he goes around and he just starts spreading rumors about everybody. He spreads that Andy's gay, and he's like, "Am I?" He's like, "Who did you talk to?" And then he says, "Pam and Jim are pregnant." Pam and Jim actually are pregnant. And watching Pam and Jim, the all stars of The Office, and there's a counterculture out there. If you guys listen to Ryan Rousseau, a great podcast, he hates Pam. He's like, Pam's the devil. When you really think about Pam's character.
Okay.
Stick with me here.
So I'm here. I'm tracking.
She was engaged to the guy in the factory, leaves him, kind of does her own thing. But no, and then they finally jump on the grenade and say, yep, we're pregnant. And it was a good one.
There's a lot of good theories coming up in this OG roundtable. So we have.
There's a 4.5 minute YouTube video on anything.
I mean, there is.
That
But
is
we
not
have
one on this
a
one.
couple right here, which debunked and the Karate Kid.
Hold on, Bill. So YouTube is this thing online. There's a bunch of videos.
Hey, if you're not, and to all of our listeners out there, if you're only listening
get
on
it
your
on your
podcast
iPhone?
platform,
Yes.
you'll want to go check us out on YouTube and subscribe.
Bill, have you actually ever listened to one of these episodes? Real quick, have you actually listened to one of these
90 times.
episodes, Mr. Hall? Because we did hit 1,000.
This is my
Oh, by the way, we hit 1,000 episode downloads the other day. That's cheers. I forgot to announce that. We did, and yours has like
I'm
the
not
most
like 100.
downloads. So do you download it every time you listen to
Every
it?
day.
Every
When I
day he
wake
drives
up.
to work and re-downloads.
You want
So
to see those numbers up?
Brandon, back to you. What's your favorite episode?
Okay, so it's that is like it truly is that is an impossible question to ask. And when I asked that, I was thinking because like when you said it triggered something. When you said it,
I
triggered
just said the
something.
first one I thought of. It's
When you said
difficult.
And I will say, the Jim and Pam wedding is a classic, and that's kind of a crowd pleaser. The wife's gonna like that as well when you watch it with her.
If you put on,
From an uncomfortable standpoint, I mean, Diversity Day may be one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever watched.
It's so office-like, right?
on television.
Right.
You watch any large organization, I think they struggle with
struggle
that.
with it,
And that's
sure.
probably a great segue into the rest of 2020. But you're right. You sit there, you're just like,
And it's a struggle, and it isn't. And this in corporate America, it's a struggle because you sometimes you try to force, especially with everything going on, like kind of like right now, like socially, you're trying to force this thing on instead of it happening organically, and the force makes it even it
More
amplifies what's going on. I think it makes people now stand out for reasons they didn't want to stand out for. More than they ever did. Like I have the great fortune of being in either the military or sales, which are all merit based, 1,000% merit based. Like it doesn't matter like what you smoke, who you sleep with, what you look like. It's merit based. Like if you perform, you're not. If you're a dirtbag, then you're a dirtbag. Like none of that matters. So when I hear some of this, sometimes it's easy to say, "Oh, I'm gonna fall back," But then, like when it's forced onto, I just think it's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable situation, and it's a tough situation for all the way around. But back to The Office. We'll kind of pin that in there. Back to The Office because you still got to go too. Do you watch The Office?
Yeah, I did. On TV.
Yes.
Do you have
on
one?
television.
Television.
It's a thing that
Actually, I brought your
pictures come
office
through.
subject up.
Oh, you did. Yeah, you're right. That's a good call. That's
So,
a good
just
call.
for the record. I remember one of the first episodes I saw was when Michael took the company on an outing on a boat. and he's giving his presentation, and he's talking about going overboard and protecting yourself, and everyone starts jumping over. Oh, that was great.
He said to him, who's the second in command on a ship next to the ship captain, office sales manager, and the ship captain's like, no. He's like, no, that's what you work. So if since everyone's going to be Jim, and then we'll kind of
everyone thinks they're Jim.
Well, everyone thinks they're Jim. We're going to wrap this segment. If you can't be Jim, which character would you be? You can't be Jim.
Ryan.
Oh,
Ryan Tim. I mean, yeah, he's got some struggles.
Remember his time in New York when he was like,
listen.
Nobody knows how much my haircut costs.
Yeah,
it costs $250.
Right. Listen, unfortunately, that's probably who I'd be.
I need Michael just to be in charge, I think. Just to be the boss. Nobody.
Okay.
If you're going to be in that environment, might as well be around the show.
I see Bill as Angela from accounting.
Really?
Or Toby. Everybody hates Toby. He's like, oh, except for Toby, you don't have a family because you're divorced. What's he say, Toby?
Is it Robert California?
I was going to say Robert California. I hate you. James Spader's character. I was going to say Robert California.
You can still be Joe.
You could be.
That's the female. I'm not going to be Joe.
What's
the tall Gabe? The tall skinny
Gabe.
the guy who's like dungeons or like really into
You
like.
look like Gabe
No, I'm not going to be Gabe, and I'm not going to do it. That's a really not cool thing to take.
Sorry, we'll cut
the
that out.
person that invited you here to
You
do
could
this
be
to take Robert California.
the man.
Daryl.
There you go.
Daryl.
Boom.
I'd be Daryl. Daryl's from Chicago.
No, I already said Daryl.
Daryl's
No,
from
you can't. You
Chicago.
have to get someone
Daryl
else.
went to my undergrad Daryl's.
It can't be two
Does
Daryls.
your sister look like you? I watched
I already
that
said
last
I'm
night.
I object,
Daryl or
counselor.
Michael? Daryl or Michael?
I see, Bill. I think you're more of a Dwight. I really do.
No. He's from some rural Amish
Beef
country.
farm.
Beef farm?
Yeah.
Come on. Nothing?
Daryl.
Similar dry sense of humor as Dwight, though.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Don't you drive a Trans Am? Come on.
That is bad. When he pukes, he hits himself in the head. I'll save you, Michael. When that was the burn foot episode. Anyway, so that's a great one. And I think you're right. Like during this kind of, you're locked in, you're quarantined.
Imagine if that show came out in 2020. I mean, it would be the hit. I mean, it already is. You're already rewatching it, but
I think the tough part about things coming out now, and it's funny. So what have I done in the pandemic? When I was locked down for 2 weeks during my COVID struggle, I rewatched The Sopranos and rewatched The Wire. I mean, you kind of go back to the great, the legendary
So I
shows.
found two new good shows, and you're gonna.
And then
I've talked
Tigerking.
about this too much, but I've gotten into the show Alone, where they just drop them off randomly, and they have to survive for as long as possible on primitive tools. They get to bring like 10 things, and they have to just survive. And Forged in Fire, where they're basically just making knives and swords. So those are the two shows I'm into.
That's because you got that knife thing. Remember that knife thing, episode 2?
Yeah. Episode 2, Father's Day gift
Father's
guide.
Day gift guide.
Have you found that knife?
Not found that knife
It's in your
anywhere.
house somewhere, by the way.
Huh?
Dude, your kids are like playing with that knife right now.
I haven't found it. So my son
That's kind of like that's like, hey, what'd you do with that nuke? I don't know.
It goes
You
missing.
wouldn't mind to watch it.
We got a broken arrow.
Yeah. So the knife goes missing all the time. My son was asking me the other day, hey, Dad, wasn't it behind that picture, on your bookshelf? And I was like, well, it was. It's not there? No, it's not there, Dad. Okay, well, I don't know where it is.
That's comforting.
Yeah. It's only about a 16-inch knife, right? 16-inch blade?
I'm aware of
Quite fine.
In our neighborhood.
Yeah,
In
it's
our
comforting.
neighborhood.
Safe place.
Yeah, it's like.
It's not like just kids running around.
It's probably
Unwatched.
duct taped
It's
to the back of my headboard. It's kind of a last line of defense.
But with your injury, you haven't been able to reach back.
Right, well,
and then
I
grab
don't
it.
want to, I have to protect myself from being, raped or molested, by some intruder. It's the last line of defense.
And you can't buy ammo anywhere.
You can't.
You cannot buy ammo anywhere. You
So-
cannot
Sold
buy
out.
That would've been
ammo
a good business to
anywhere,
get
which
into.
is kind of crazy and kind of like on the flip
It's
side of that,
nuts.
like a little,
I know
a little
people
unnerving maybe would be the
here in
term.
the suburbs of Jacksonville, when the Republican National Convention was coming, they went out and bought more weapons because they thought it was going to get crazy here. They live in the suburbs.
I called my financial advisor and I said, I think we need to invest a little bit more in steel and lead.
Gold.
Some armory, some arms, and some ammunition.
Who's the old guy that does gold? If you like gold, you'll buy like on the infomercial, like he's trying to sell gold coins,
Yeah, he was
gold bullion or
Marshall
something.
Capital.
Well, you got
He was president of the show 24. The guy.
Yeah, he was.
Birch Gold, not a sponsor.
He was exactly. What about Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin still a thing?
It is.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
There's Bitcoin, there's Litecoin, there's Ethereum. I follow.
All right.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
So explain this to my non-Bitcoin understanding state school education head. Where where is there actual something that backs it up to say, if I want all my Bitcoins, I need them cashed out right now, I can go make a run and get them? So I can go buy a computer that creates Bitcoins?
Yeah.
Or mines them?
You could. You could.
So why don't so that would be like me going and buying my own printing press for money.
Well, first of all, if you mine Bitcoins, there is only actually a set amount.
So who produces the finite amount of Bitcoins?
People do through network computers.
So that's what I mean. Some people can
they will mine them, but mining them is costing energy to actually do that. There's a lot of computer power that would go into that would cost you money.
It's like electricity. The electric bills
like
high.
Electricity.
No, I think it's like much more complex than just being like, I got a computer now. I'm just
so there's a certain amount of Bitcoin.
Servers and stuff.
But you could sell, if you have Bitcoin, you could sell it and convert it to real dollars. So I don't know what the Bitcoin price is today, but let's call it $10,000 per Bitcoin.
It's about that, I think.
You can put that on a hard wallet, and then you could.
Is that opposed to like a leather wallet, like a soft leather wallet?
Think about it in more of like computer terms, almost like on a thumb drive.
Okay.
Thumb drive.
And then if you were to take that thumb drive, plug it in your computer, and go to a Bitcoin, sort of like a bank, so like Coinbase, you could actually sell all that Bitcoin, and they would drop in the $10,000 into your bank account. So it's real money, although it's virtual currency. And nobody really knows which one of these sort of virtual currencies is going to take off. Like back when the internet was coming out, nobody knew that Google was going to be the search engine of all.
And Webvan and Lycos was going to fail.
Right.
No one knew that. Right.
That's the guy that's like, I went all in on Lycos.
So
I went all in on Lycos with the little black dog.
I'm not telling our listeners to go invest in Bitcoin or any of these other virtual currencies, but you never know. I mean, it's going somewhere, and the technology behind it is really actually what people are interested in, which is the way to really track things through. I can't remember.
But it kind of goes back to the point earlier about if you go all that and then you get RFID. We're going to call it RFID. We're going to actually we're going to put that on UrbanDictionary.com. It's called RFID, which is getting an RFID chip injected into your skin.
You can put it on Wikipedia. It's most accurate.
Go to Wikipedia right now. RFID. And they'll say, back to Labor Day weekend, Dudeology show, Dudeology show 2020, RFID.
Within Bitcoin, there's something called blockchain, which is the technology. And it's basically the blockchain of where that Bitcoin has come from and where it's been. Who bought it, who owned it. And it's all, mapped out, right? So that's the technology that people are using to improve things like smart contracts and all this weird stuff out there. And it's like super techy. But yeah, so the RFID and the Bitcoin, if those two came together, potentially it could be like revolutionary.
So we got 1 quarter left for the year. We got 3 months. Today's Labor Day, so we have three months. So we got the finish line, hopefully in sight.
Right. So did you see the meme out there where 2020 hits and then it says like 1160?
Oh yeah. There's like an extra second.
9 and then 1160.
So that may be.
Memes are things that happen on the internet.
It's like a funny picture that someone puts, and they put like some words. And I'm gonna do a vis-a-vis meme. Can we do a vis-a-vis meme?
Yeah.
But if it's a movie right now, 2020 the movie, would you buy a ticket to watch it? Oh yeah, what movie would it be? What movie would it be?
Big question.
Is it a tragedy? Is it
Yeah.
horror?
I think the movie
Depends on who you are. It depends on who you are. I think.
So if you go back to 2005, the movie Crash won the Oscar.
It's a good movie.
It was a very good movie.
Yeah.
And what that was
Sandra
vignettes. The
No,
vignettes of different people. You probably didn't watch it, right? Vignettes of different
Sheba?
folks.
Yeah,
And
really good.
within the people, each character had like hero, heroine, but also villain. And it kind of just painted the picture of how human beings are like flawed.
And they were all in the
So I
same car
think in the
accident or something,
COVID-
weren't they? Yeah.
I think in the COVID crisis, the protests, the presidential election, the Iranian issue, like if you were able to create
Murder
vignettes,
hornets, go on.
if you were able to create vignettes, right, and have these storylines like a fictionalized history, I would buy that ticket.
So it's
So is that a yes?
Well,
If it were produced by the right people and had the right actors, who would play you? Oh, no, obviously, Harold from The Office would play you.
Who's
Harold
the
from The
Hurt
Office.
Nicolas Cage.
No, not Hurt Locker. Oh, no. Jeremy
Renner.
Piven. No, Jeremy Renner. Renner, not Piven. Yeah,
I'd
Jeremy
play-
Renner.
he'd play
Jeremy
Renner.
Renner. But Piven's a good actor, too.
Yeah, he is. He's from Chicago.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
So I just started volunteering in a new organization, and one of the things you got asked in the intro to this was what inspires you. And the thing that inspires me is people that are able to kind of go beyond where they are today and challenge the status quo and make a better life for themselves. And I think that's a great way to look at 2020. And I think hopefully on the back end of this, and I think it's going to take, it's September 7th, Elections Day is in 2 months. I think it's going to take the back end of Election Day, and hopefully the country comes to a little more harmony. But I think people that are able to challenge status quo to get better, and that's been the biggest frustration, I think, when you look at where we are right now with the social unrest. Dan Crenshaw, who I know a lot of us have read his book and enjoy what he has, he made a statement, and I totally agree with the social unrest. If you ask this group of protesters right now, endgame, you get to pick the endgame, what would it be? And we'll stop. They would look at you and go, I don't know. And that's a little scary, the outrage culture. So I think if we can learn from 2020 and become better as a country and become better as individuals to become a better country, I'd buy the ticket in a heartbeat. My worry right now is I've never seen the country so divided. And that to me is a big worry. And I think, so 2020, if we can come out on the back end and at the end of things, we become a better, stronger country, 100%. I worry right now what the trajectory we're headed on. And I worry, take your political things out, we got a 74-year-old man running against a 78-year-old man. That's got to scare you a little bit as a country.
Sure.
That's the best we have to offer right now. But even the mindsets, I will tell you, in my 41 years, I can't think of a more diametrically opposed what they're thinking, economic and everything else. And if you stripped off the names and personalities, I think it'd be interesting to see where people would fall in line.
And the history up to this point, right? Like and reactions to things or tweets to things or whatever they are, like whatever it doesn't really matter. But like if you just looked at, I think to your point, like what would logic tell you?
Right.
Like if you did logic, like that was totally void of emotion, how that would end up?
Yeah, and as a racism situation, we got 5 guys between the age of mid-30s to mid, right, not upper 40s, mid-40s.
He's
sitting
almost
here
upper.
that have come through different ways to get us all here. And that's one of the things you and I talked about. A great podcast is just, hey, what's your story? How are you here today? But you look at that, how we can all be more understanding of what got everybody to where they are. I think that's a great place we can be as a country. And so 2020, I'll buy a ticket if we can get there. Yeah. Otherwise, man, it's not been a very good movie so far. It's been a comedy. It's been a comedy as to how
we're
we
waiting for the hero to come in and save the day, or some good news on the back end.
And what's been interesting to me, and you talk about heroes, you talk about cinema, you talk about TV shows. In the last 20 years or so, since The Sopranos, there's never the anti-hero is kind of what's become popular. The Walter Whites in Breaking Bad, the Tony Sopranos in The Sopranos. You look at The Wire, whether it be Stringer Bell or whatever else it might be.
Well, it's amazing how easily somebody, and anybody could do this, but go from just being a normal, regular guy to kind of going down the rabbit trail of being pretty bad.
But that's where I think the opportunity right now to be a hero, it's there.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to pull this stuff up from all the muck right now. And I hope they do. And I hope, COVID, I think the smartest people in the world will come up with a way to fix that situation. And I think hopefully quickly, and I hope smart guys sell it. But I hope we get there. But when you look at kind of the social unrest, the racial unrest, I think we can get better. And I think we all need to listen, we all need to do that. But I think at the end of the day, you need to keep progressing. And that's where I kind of, 2020, am I buying? Maybe. We'll see.
Sure.
Luckily, we got 3-4 more months to figure it out.
Yeah, and you hit it right there. And I was like, dude, if everyone would just chill the hell out, man, and like calm down for a second and just have some conversation.
Well, that's what,
Right.
Literally, take a break, eat a steak, grab a beer, talk.
Right.
Hang out. All right, what am I upset about, or what am I not upset about, or why do I really need this much ammo? Do I not need much? Like, why would I? Like, it could go like the pendulum swing. But that was the greatest. That was the greatest non-answer I've ever heard. By the way,
Well,
that was the greatest non-answer I've ever heard.
Study after study shows, though, that people hang out with people who are like them.
Sure. Echo chamber.
Whether it's race, whether it's philosophy, religion. So we're all sitting here. We live in the same community, probably share similar values, same race. Like the echo chamber. So how do we as men break out of that and say what, we may not agree with somebody, we may agree to disagree, but what should we be doing as leaders and saying I'm going to go listen to somebody even though I may not agree with them.
So Bill, I'll tell you, when Congressman Crenshaw wrote his book Fortitude, which is an interesting read, Short, quick read, good read. But he talked about the outrage culture. I'm like, hey, let's not be so outraged. Let's not just jump at things. So social unrest really started happening in June, really dug in. And that's right when I was retiring. I was had to give a couple speeches. And I looked at my crew of about 300 people on a destroyer. And what I love about the military, and you were saying it's a merit-based, I totally agree. But it's also no other organization in the country are you going to have the diversity of backgrounds you have in the military. You go work at Pure Fit, Miller Electric, GlaxoSmithKline, you have kind of similar type or people in the organization. The military, you got them all over. And you got them, I would love, we get a new batch of sailors, you get 7 to 10 sailors, and you have men and women, every race you can imagine, and every home state. And people have asked me, the military, where does that fall politically? I said, it really depends on the home state and where they're from, more so than it does the military. But I pulled in one of my senior guys who was black, and I said to him, I said, hey, Chief, as a black man, do I need to say anything about what's going on in this country? He said, sir, you say it every day with your actions. We're all working towards a common goal, and that's more important than our race or anything else. I said, okay, good. I don't have to think of anything to say. But I talked about that, and I think that's where, as a country right now, the division we have and what 2020 has cultivated, that's scary. That we don't have that common, hey, how are we going to get better as a country? How are we going to advance? And I'm a big believer, if everybody gets better, the team gets better. How are we making everybody get better? And how are we setting the environment where we make it get better? And I think that's one thing we can really look at as a culture before I'm buying a 2020 movie ticket.
No, well, and I hear you. Listen, and ultimately, like we can't, as we talk about, the movement being inspiring guys to be better guys, right? And just to make their communities better, make their families better. Not once do we say, hey, we should inspire one another to follow X amount, this president. It's not going to come from the top down. It happens organically here. Like it happens like, hey, what do you do with your neighbors? What do you do with your friends? Mm-hmm. How do you treat other people? To your point, by actions.
Well, how are you raising your kids, and how are you leading your family? It starts, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what color your skin is. You talk to people, it all starts in the family unit and with fathers, I think. So, right into where you're going is how do men become better leaders in their families, and then let that extrapolate out with their friends in society, at work, in their extracurriculars.
Yeah, and there's a definite there are regardless of society or upbringing, there are things that are right and things that are wrong. I mean, pretty much. There are things that are morally right to do and the way to treat people, and there are things that are not the right way to treat people. Yeah. And if you err on the side of doing the right ones, I think most of the time you're going to be okay. Like things will ultimately work out in society.
You are. I think that people have to shut the noise out. So you have to cable news is fine to watch as long as you can be reasonable about what's being said. But I think the problem is that we assign too much responsibility and power to politicians. To your point, it's really about your community. It's about how you treat people. That's more important. I have no control over who's president of the United States. I have one vote. That vote's probably not going to determine the outcome. I don't think the president of the United States has that much influence over our culture. I think it really comes down to people treating other people with respect, love, dignity, and commonality and equality. And I think we assign so much power to government through, and I think the media cultivates that. I think they promote it because it's good business for them. So MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, they all play to their consumers. Yeah. I think it's really about cutting through that, putting that to the side, and focusing on who you are, how you treat your family, how you treat your neighbors.
You can control what you can control, and that's your own reaction to things and your own actions.
Yeah. As we come out of 2020, I'm a firm believer that hard things are good things. And there's a lot of hard things that have happened in 2020 and a lot of change that honestly needed to take place with related to race in the United States. There was things that a lot of people needed to take a hard look in the mirror and ask themselves some hard questions, and I think everybody has done that to some degree. And if they haven't, it's just a matter of time until they do, because it's being forced upon us, and rightfully so in a lot of cases. And that's just one component of 2020 that I think has made people take a hard look in the mirror. With COVID, it's probably an internal, am I as healthy as I should be? Spending time at home, it's is my house relationship with my family as good as it should be? And we've had the time and opportunity to reflect on all of these things. And if you haven't done that yet, and you've been consumed with Tiger King, you've been consumed with Fox News or CNN or whatever thing that it is,
Facebook,
yeah,
social media
any of these
stuff.
escapes, like there's been no other time in my like adult life that I've had the time to ask those hard questions and to come out of those hard questions with good answers to move forward. So I hope that other people are doing that. I hope that as a society we use this hard time to make a good change in the future.
No, so I think it's great. So a lot of times as men, I think we're transactional. Everything we do is a transaction, and you're not really developing relationships totally not. I think one good thing in 2020, and I'm kind of biased in my own life experiences. I made the decision. I'm done deploying. I'm done in the military. I spend a lot more time with my kids. I spend a lot more time with my wife, and I realized we all kind of like each other, which is a good thing. But what are you doing to cultivate that? And I think you're 100% right, and I think Chris, you're right too in that. That's the first building block. If you can't get that right, you can't get much else right.
Yep.
That's the foundation. And what are we doing for that? But I also think it's shown me with my own family that you got to do things, because it is very easy with all the technology and everything in place to just not leave. And then you get out and you need to interact. And I find it interesting. You go to the beach, you go to the pool, you go wherever else right now. You see a group of kids in their teens and 20s. They'll get out there, they'll sit in a circle just like all of us do. And then within minutes, they're all down their phones. They're not even talking, interacting. And I think that hopefully 2020 has led us to kind of rear back on that and enjoy that social interaction a little more. And I think part of that social interaction is learning what the other person's going through. Though I agree, we're all similar. We've all sit through different things. We're all different. You're from Illinois. You're from Florida, but you've been all over. You've been in the Army. You're the only guy from here that I know. John's from the great state of New Jersey, but he's been all over. And I think it's a great. We all kind of have a story that got us here, and learning that. I think if we take anything from 2020, it's that.
Yeah.
What makes each of us unique? And I think that's something I've definitely taken as I take a step back a little bit.
Every dude got a story.
Absolutely. And that's what we're all about, right? And that's kind of what listen, guys, I want to say thanks for coming out, and this is cool. Do you guys like this the OG setup?
Hold on, is the Dudeology tab not open anymore?
The Dudeology tab open. Listen, the tab's open, the bar's open, the tab's open.
Okay.
But no, we
Really Good Beer Stop is still
Really
open.
Good Beer Stop is open at, again, 2 different locations. Any of the opinions that we shared here, I don't think we shared anything too crazy, but if we did, this is all of the Dudeology show. This does not have anything to do with the Really Good Beer Stop. They have sponsored the show, but they, I guess, the expressed opinions are our own, and not the consent of the sponsor, which is the Really Good Beer Stop, with 2 locations in Jacksonville Beach and Nocatee Town Center. Check them out at reallygoodbeerstop.com. But most importantly, please do us a favor. Folks ask us all the time what they can do to help out, and go to your favorite episode and share it on your social media network. If you are one of the few people in the world that is not on social media, which I may actually take a fast or a break from that after your compelling narrative about not being on social media was pretty cool. And then I'm kind of scared about all the other stuff with AI, so I may just take a break from it in general. But anyway, go to iTunes and then click the share, or iHeartRadio, which is like the #1 podcasting platform now, or Spotify, YouTube, wherever it is. It's getting kind of crazy back here behind us, so we better sign off. But on behalf of all 5 of us here and every dude making it happen and getting out there, we appreciate all of this good action, and we wish you some good action this week.
Like and subscribe and share.
Thank you for listening to The Dudeology Show, your spot for cool stories, awesome stuff, and killer gear. Make sure to subscribe to us on your favorite listening platform and follow us on social media at Dudeology Show.